Okay, we're live, thanks.
Good. All right. Jenny, are we okay to start?
You are, Chair. You're ready to start the meeting.
Sorry, Judy. Yep.
You're ready to start.
All right. Thank you. Well, if those who aren't speaking could just keep their microphones off until they do wish to speak, and that will help communication over the airwaves. So welcome everybody. I'd like to open the meeting of the City of Adelaide Council Assessment Panel for tonight. My name's Mark Adcock. I'm the presiding member, and I'll be chairing the meeting and doing the best we can over this Zoom platform. So I declare the meeting open and advise that the meeting of the panel is being streamed live to the City of Adelaide website, and a recording will also be published to the internet. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside of Australia. So the City of Adelaide Council Assessment Panel acknowledges that we are meeting on traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respect to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations who are present today. Attending the meeting today from the panel, I'm not sure who can see what, but I'll just let you know that all panel members are present. So online is Mr. Mark Duncan, Ms. Colleen Dunn, and Professor Mads Gardbo, and Aman Abrahimzadeh. We also have a number of staff online who are here to assist us with any question procedures. So welcome everybody and thank you for attending tonight. Our first item of business is to confirm the minutes of the last meeting, put on the 28th of June 2021. There they are, I can see them. Would anybody like to move and the adoption of the minutes? Just raise your hand. I can only see Mads moved it and somebody needs to second it. I've only got two other people I can see.
Colleen seconding, if that is.
Aman did it.
And Colleen?
Yes.
I've got Mads. Thank you. So vote those in favour. Just raise your hand. Those against. Okay, that unanimously. Second item on the agenda is declaration of conflicts of interest. Mark, I believe you have something to raise.
Yes, I've got a conflict for the first item tonight, Mark. I have a employment relationship with Future Urban, who are representing the applicant.
We'll ask you to leave the meeting at this point, therefore, noting a conflict of interest.
Thank you.
As our first item of business, which is now due, is the particular item you're referring to.
Yes.
So, Jenny, if you can just confirm Mark has been moved.
Mark has been moved to the waiting room.
Thanks, Judy. All right, members. Item 4.1 is a development at 240 Adelaide. It is the demolition of the existing building on story mixed-use building for offices and car parking at ground floor level and 2 apartments at first floor level. We have seen this application previously, as noted in the agenda, under the former planning system, the Development Act. So this application has now been lodged and is being assessed under the new PDI Act. It's been categorised as a co-assessed performance assessed application, which is probably akin to a merit application. It has been publicly notified and 4 representations have been received, and we have a copy of all of those in our papers tonight. 1 representative has wished to be heard, so we now have a hearing to hear that representative, and I believe Mr. Graham Burns is representing Mr. Christopher and Mrs. Linda Dibden, who live adjacent at 248 Halifax Street. Graham, can you hear me? Just acknowledge.
Yes, I can. Thank you, presiding member.
Good, thank you. All right, well, you know the procedure. We invite you to speak for 5 minutes on behalf of your clients. Panel members will then ask questions if they have any queries or need further explanation. And then we will invite Mr. Fabian Baroni of Future Urban to respond on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Baroni, are you present?
I am, presiding member.
Good, thank you. So you can hear and see everything you need to see?
That's correct, yep.
Excellent. All right, we'll commence the hearing. Graham, if you'd like to start, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, panel members. As you've just noted, presiding member, nothing has changed at all with this application. I note I've looked over that the proposal very carefully. As you probably know, that we have lodged an appeal against the panel's decision to approve the application. That appeal is has been suspended pending the outcome of this matter. Look, we are, I don't want to repeat myself, but I will for the sake of simply making it clear as to my client's position, and I share my client's concern. This proposal is going to completely overshadow their courtyard. The courtyard is the only area of private open space that is usable and is used for their outdoor recreation and amenity purposes. It would not be difficult, it would not be at all difficult for this application to be amended in a very minor respect to line up the effective courtyard on the opposite side, that is the proposal side of the fence, to achieve some light penetration into the courtyard. I'm conscious of what was said at the last panel meeting about what the then development plan said about the provision of sunlight at the winter solstice, and I repeat what I said before. This proposal will not allow any sunlight whatsoever into the private open space of my courtyard, my client's courtyard, at the winter solstice, none whatsoever. And I think it's pretty clear what the development plan and now the code said about that. There should be a certain amount of sunlight, 2 hours of sunlight into that courtyard. None will penetrate the courtyard at the winter solstice. So I cannot understand why, from the applicant's point of view, a minor variation has not been made to the proposal to facilitate some sunlight into that courtyard. It would not be difficult. I'm not an architect, but it would certainly not be difficult to achieve some degree of compliance with the code, where at the moment none will be provided. So we're simply asking for the panel to take on board my client's genuine concern in this regard. They are not opposed to the development. They are not opposed to the look of the development, the density of the development. They are simply concerned that the development could have been more sensitively designed to accommodate what is their very, very reasonable concern about the total blocking of sunlight into their courtyard. I've not nominated earlier as to how this could be done. It's been nominated in my submission as to how it could be done. I'm not an architect, as I said, but it would not be at all difficult to achieve a degree of sunlight penetration. I've read the planner's report. I note there's reference in the planner's report to legal determinations in relation to sunlight in the past. I'm not sure of what that determination would be because it was, excuse me, it wasn't specified in the representation. But the fact of the matter is, and let's leave aside completely what the courts might or might not say about this issue, the code is very clear. This proposal should allow not less than 2 hours of sunlight at the winter solstice into the private open space of a neighbour's courtyard or private open space. This proposal provides no sunlight whatsoever. So we simply ask for the panel to take on board my client's genuine concerns and not approve the application in its current format. It simply would not be beyond the realms of possibility or architectural licence to achieve what my clients are quite simply and genuinely asking for. Happy to take any questions, presiding member or panel members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Members, are there any questions? Now, again, I don't know why, but I can't see everybody on my screen. I don't obviously got the right setting on, so please speak up if you wish to ask questions of the applicant. Sorry, of the representative. All right, it appears there are no questions. Graham, the suggestions you've made in your representation about the height of the wall and the location, is it an open terrace? They weren't made last time from my recollection.
Sorry, presiding member, last time, that is before the panel?
Yes.
No, in many words, these are matters that I've looked at more carefully as part of the appeal proceedings. And as I said, a lowering of the wall to achieve more sunlight at that upper level and a shifting over of the courtyard so that it more lines up squarely, more squarely with my client's courtyard, are suggestions that I have made. Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that that is something new for us to have considered this time around. Thank you. All right, thank you. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to the representative, Mr. Broney, to respond. Fabian, would you like to respond to the representations?
Sure. Thank you, presiding member. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yep.
Thanks. Members, as you'd be aware, this development is identical to the one which you considered and subsequently consented to on the 22nd of March. It's simply been resubmitted, albeit this time under the PDI Act, as there appears to be no prospect of an agreement being reached with the appellants for who, for what it's worth, haven't attended any of the conferences that have been held to date. The only noteworthy differences between the two applications are that the plot ratio policies have been abolished and that an office such as that proposed on the ground level is no longer classed as a non-compliant or restricted form of development in this part of the zone. Clearly, the issue of overshadowing has been debated ad nauseum, and as such, there are just 3 key points that I'd like to emphasise this evening. Firstly, the diagrams attached to my letter dated July 8, i.e. my response to the representations, clearly show that the representative's courtyard will, with or without the proposed building, continue to be overshadowed by the existing boundary wall between 9 AM and 3 PM on the winter solstice. They also render DPF 3.2 of the interfaces between land uses section of the code superfluous, in my opinion, as this policy calls for access to sunlight to be maintained during the winter solstice, not reintroduced in cases where it simply doesn't exist. Secondly, the representative's property is, just like the site itself, located wholly within the confines of the subzone, not outside of it. Consequently, PO 2.1 of the subzone cannot be applied to the assessment of this application, and their amenity expectations cannot reasonably equate with those of residents outside of the subzone. And thirdly, the applicant has sought to minimise the overshadowing effect of the building by ensuring that it remains 1 level and 2 metres beneath the maximum building height that's been prescribed for this particular site. Indeed, the diagrams submitted at the time of lodgement show that the representative's central courtyard will continue to receive access to sunlight from midday until 2 PM between September 21 and March 21. So members, for the reasons that I espoused last time around, and for those that are outlined in the CAP report before you, I commend this application to you, and I believe that it's deserving of consent, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Fabian. Members, are there any questions? Shake of head. Mads, did you have a question? No? No. Okay. Fabian, there are no questions from the others, but I'd just like to ask, it's been put to you that there could be some amendments that would be readily achievable in terms of the wall height and the location of the courtyard terrace. Have you looked at those in any particular fashion and thought whether they would be possible and suitable?
Presiding member, you may or may not recall, but just prior to the previous CAP meeting, we agreed to lower the height of that particular wall from 3.55 metres to 2.7 metres at the representors' behest. That was not at the behest of the administration, simply that of the representors. And given that the appellants haven't been present at the conferences to date, it's been difficult to negotiate any other outcome, and my instructions as of this evening are to not make any further changes to the built form.
Yes, I do recall that, Fabian. Have you discussed that with your client? I know you've just said you don't have instructions to make that concession, but I was just wondering, does reducing it to 1.7 cause a particular problem?
If that was the difference between an approval or a refusal, I suspect that the applicant would take that. Look, at the end of the day, as I said, whether we've got the proposed building in its place or the existing boundary wall, that courtyard will continue to be overshadowed all day long on the winter solstice. I don't see that will make a substantial difference to the overall outcome. But as I said, if 1.7 is the deal breaker, then potentially it's something that we could accept.
Yes. Thanks, Fabian. I guess if we were to approve it with such a condition, if your client was unhappy, it'd be an appeal at you anyway against that.
May I say something?
Was any follow-up to my comments for the applicant? No. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, applicant and representative, for your presentation. I'll just
Chair.
ask Graham, are you trying to talk?
Yes, I am.
Yes, he is, Chair.
Yes, I'm trying to talk.
Yes. What?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can. Yes.
Thank you. There's a bit of a delay at this end, or at somebody's end. Look, can I just respond very quickly, because I think this is a deal breaker. Mr. Baroni has mentioned that if this matter could be resolved by lowering that height to 1.7 metres, that is a clear 1 metre lower than it would have otherwise been. That will make a material difference to addressing my client's concerns. Not totally, but it is a material difference. So I would urge the panel, if this application is to be approved, it be approved in accordance with a condition that ensures that wall height is not more than 1.7 metres. That's a height which, after all said and done in the code, is prescribed. So it doesn't seem to me at all unreasonable for the panel to adopt that position, to bring the wall height at the courtyard level of the proposal down to 1.7 metres above floor level. That would be a material improvement.
Thank you, Graham. That's well understood. We don't normally enter into a debate during the hearing, but because you have spoken again, Fabian, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, thanks, presiding member. Look, I obviously don't have the applicant with me in this lockdown scenario, and I don't want to waste your time by trying to get him on the phone. At the end of the day, at 1.7 metres, if they're not content with that outcome, should you want to go down that path, then obviously we have the ability to appeal that condition. So as I said, if it's the difference between a consent or a refusal, I dare say that we would put up with a 1.7 metre high wall on that boundary.
That's fine. Thanks, Fabian. We'll leave it at that point. Now, if I could turn to staff, perhaps Seb in particular, Is there anything you wish to update us with about this application, or any comment that arises from the hearing? I can't see you, Seb, so you might need to say something.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can see you too.
Okay, great. Is there anything specifically you're looking for in terms of an update, or?
Well, I did have a question that perhaps Fabian has partly answered, and that was going to be, I mean, it has not escaped my attention that we're dealing with exactly the same application that we've dealt with before. So it would be unusual in some respects for us to come to a different conclusion. But of course, that we are operating under a new system. So there are some nuances there. We do have a new policy base, and there may be, and this is where I think Fabian pointed out, some changes. Are you across the material changes between consideration under the PDI Act and under the Old Development Act? If you could just comment on that.
Okay, so I suppose in terms of this key issue, the overshadowing issue, there hasn't been a substantial change between the development plan and the code requirements now. So there still is the requirement for the 2 hours of sunlight, which was the same in the development plan. I'm not sure, are you getting that interference as well? Can't quite hear.
Not me.
No.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so in terms of that, it's relatively the same. Probably one of the main changes is in terms of setback requirements. So there are some more prescriptive requirements in the code now, and there weren't in the development plan. They relate to the side boundary, rear boundary, and secondary street boundary frontages or boundaries. In terms of the side boundary, it does talk about trying to be in line more with the neighbouring development in terms of setbacks. It's a little bit difficult to achieve in this sort of city context sometimes, but that requirement has changed. And then there's been some other changes as well, but that are not maybe as relevant specifically to this issue. So I don't know if you want me to elaborate on them or not, but.
No, I think that's fine. Seb, thanks for. Other members have questions of the staff before we discuss? No, okay. Well, let's throw it open for discussion. Because we're online and things are a little bit awkward, I'm just going to go left to right across my screen and ask you if you wish to say anything, bearing in mind that you can come back at any time, interject, discuss and say whatever you like, as long as it's relevant to the application. But with you, Mads, I've just, oh, I see.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
With the, yes, I can hear you, but I can't see there now. Okay, over to you.
Oh, do you want me to comment now?
You wish to say anything?
Yes. Look, first of all, I think it's very interesting to hear the two representations here, and that there might actually be ground for agreement between them. And I would think that when we have an opportunity to have both parties agreeing on a slight change, I think that is something that we should pursue. It's a slightly difficult project because of the design of the courtyard, I think. The courtyard is a very small one, and it's very narrow right on the western boundary. And it's almost impossible not to, if anything else is developed on the subject site,
almost impossible not to affect the use, the outlook, or the sun in that courtyard. I would actually have thought that originally the courtyard was designed not so much for direct sun, but more for natural light inside the building, and for ventilation reasons also, rather than a place where you would sit and enjoy direct sunlight. The design of the courtyard from the originally, I'm wondering what the main purpose was. But as I said, if we could get to an agreement between the two parties, I think that would be worthwhile considering strongly. Thank you.
All right, Mads. Yeah, thank you. That's an interesting observation. Colleen, did you want to say anything? I can't see you on screen at the moment, but if you microphone on and let me know.
Okay. I have. Thanks, Mark. I agree with Mads in that if we can move towards some sort of agreement between the parties by reducing that wall, and I don't think that that's going to be to the detriment of the application. I think that will still be acceptable. I think that our decision in March is still correct. I think this is an appropriate design and application. I think it's artfully done. I appreciate the concerns of the neighbour to the east with the potential for increased overshadowing, but like Mads observed, this really won't be loss of light, it will just be loss of sunlight. So it will remain quite bright during the winter, but just less direct sunlight. But I also think that the expectation that if you're buying or building within what's now a medium to high density zone, that there has to be some expectation of overshadowing and overlooking and loss of views. And so I think that the application remains appropriate. However, if we can negotiate on the 1.7 metre, the reduction of the wall to that, I think that's entirely appropriate.
Thanks, Colleen. All right, Aman, was there anything you'd like to say? I think if you speak, I'll see you on the screen.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. Just to note that I think the compromise is a good way to get that mutual agreement between the two parties, and I'm happy to endorse that. Nothing further to add.
Thank you, Aman. I really have a different view either. I think there is a responsibility by both parties to work in terms of preserving access to sunlight. And I think the applicant has made it awkward, not deliberately, obviously, but made it awkward for an adjoining development where the height limit is 3 stories to really do much else. But I too would support a condition, even though we didn't consider it last time. Probably Mads has explained it as best as any, that if it's possible to reach a compromise like that, then that might be a good outcome. Man, did anybody want to follow up on any comments there? Otherwise, I'll see if Aman wanted to actually move the recommendation before us, which is to approve the development as written on the screen. And you probably wanted to add another condition about the reduction of the, what should we call that wall, Seb?
Yeah, so that's the sort of the courtyard wall for apartment 1. It's probably the best way to describe it.
Okay, so if we had a condition that read something along the lines, don't want to put words in your mouth, Aman, but if the height of the courtyard wall to apartment 1 was reduced to a height of 1.7 metres above floor level.
Yep, happy with that, Chair.
Or that at least translated into English. So try and get that up on the screen. I can't see the recommendation at this stage.
It's being typed.
Yeah, apologies, I'm just typing it up now. Just give me a moment, I'll put it in.
Thanks, Helen. Yes, Judy, I'm clicking on various things, thumbnails and all sorts of things, but I can't seem to get everybody on the screen as well as the recommendation at the same time. So I obviously need to improve my electronic skills.
Mark, can you see view in the top right-hand corner?
Not at the moment, no.
What about?
Oh, yes, I can.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes, view.
Pick on that.
Speaker view, gallery view.
Okay. Now, when we go back to seeing the text on the screen, just go back in there and have a little poke around, because then you can change the display of the participants.
Yes, that's what I was hoping to do, but I'll certainly give that a try. So we all of us can't see the recommendation at the moment?
That's true.
Right, okay. We'll give Helen a minute to add that condition.
Thank you, Colleen.
My apologies for the formatting. It's not playing nice. So you can just see a conditional 11 at the bottom there or in the middle there in red. Is that the wording you would like to see?
Let me see, upper level apartment to courtyard wall, boundary wall. Perhaps just be quite clear, boundary wall shall be reduced to a height of to a maximum height of 1.7 metres. Well, let's just say a height of 1.7 metres.
Do we need to stipulate the eastern side?
Of overlooking. Beg your pardon, Helen?
Do we need to stipulate the eastern side, or is it clear anyway?
Well, I think there's only one boundary.
Boundary, yeah.
And it's so apartment 1 rather than apartment 2.
Apartment 1?
Yep.
Yeah.
That helps. Good. Seb, does that look all right to you?
That looks good. Yes.
Good. Thank you. Aman, are you happy with that?
Happy with that, Chair.
All right. So, Aman, you're moving that. Would somebody like to second it? I can't see. And I have clicked on that.
Mads is indicating that he's prepared to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Judy. So that's seconded by Mads. So we'll now put that to the vote. Those in favour, and I can see everybody. It's all right. So that's carried unanimously. So thank you, gentlemen, Graham and Fabian, for your contribution tonight. Hopefully we've got somewhere to appease some of the more serious concerns. All right.
Thanks, members.
Thank you, members.
Thank you very much. We'll get Mark back into the meeting.
Mark is now with you, Chair.
Mark, welcome back.
Thank you.
We're now on to the second item of business tonight, which is item 5.1, which is development at 61 to 71 Wellington Square, North Adelaide. This is the partial demolition of a dwelling, a local heritage building, and the construction of a 2-storey addition with double garage to the rear. This was assessed on merit. So this is under the old Development Act, assessed on merit, notified there were no representations received. So we won't be needing to undertake a hearing. We do have representatives of the applicant online. I can see Simon and I can see Abraham. Welcome to the meeting. We won't ask you to make a presentation because a hearing, your role is normally to respond to any verbal representations we've received. But so we just ask you to observe the proceedings, but I will invite or allow any member of the panel to perhaps direct a question to you should we need a clarification or explanation of any particular feature. So having said that, I'll just note that the application has been recommended for approval with a reserve matter and various conditions. So I'll ask members, again, starting from my left, which is Mads, to comment if they wish.
Thank you. Look, I think the important sort of issue here for me is the presentation to the public realm, and the new extension addresses the primary space, which is of course the square. It also establishes a better edge of the square in terms of built form. So in other words, I think it is a considerable improvement on the existing situation. I also appreciated the application where the architect has set out their purpose and the process and replied to council wishes. So I have no problems with this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mads. Colleen?
Thanks, Mark. I just have a couple of questions. One probably is to Edward rather than the applicant. Can you just talk me through the private open space? I'm just a bit puzzled how it's achieved. Is it the courtyard at the back, the balcony at the front, and that area in front of the new living area? Does that make up 150 square metres?
Thank you, Colleen. Yes, the areas are as you've mentioned. In particular, there is that area at the front facing Wellington Square that's adjacent to the driveway. So that area is part of the open space calculations. I might just help you out by referring to the specific plan in question, which I believe is, with me. So it's that area immediately to the south of the driveway, adjacent to the veranda of the heritage place.
And is that considered sufficiently private? I know they've got a hedge along there and then they've got a high wall for a portion of it. But is that satisfactory for private open space?
Certainly it is a little bit questionable in terms of, I guess, the balcony, because that is certainly overlooking and by the square. Historically, the property has had a hedge around it, and in my years at council, the hedge has been quite an effective screening.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm satisfied with that. Thank you. And just a side question to the applicant. I noticed that the shutters have gone from the local heritage building out the front, and they're included in the original photos. Are they being restored? I presume that they've just been taken away to be painted or something. Is the intention to restore them?
Sorry. Hello. Yes, the intention is to restore them, and as a matter of fact, the owner has been doing quite a great job on maintaining the place. He's been redoing the garden, repainting the walls, retiling, doing a roof, repainting the frames to the original color, which was a color blue. And he's still doing some works at his place. So yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, I think this is really quite an extraordinarily complex addition, but I've inspected it very closely, and I'm really very impressed by how well it's been resolved, and I like the way that it fits with the existing dwelling, and I think that I'm satisfied that they've dealt with the overlooking and the overshadowing, and the articulation and material selection, I think, reduces the potential bulk. And I think it'll make a really important contribution to the square. So I certainly support the application.
Thank you, Colleen. We'll just move on to Mark. Did you want to say anything?
Not a lot, Mark. I thought it was a wonderful design. Complies with the development plan. I actually couldn't see what was controversial about it, other than obviously demolition of part of a local heritage place. But beyond that, it's a dwelling in a residential zone. I think it's eminently supportable.
Thank you, Mark. And Aman?
Thank you, Chair. Just to add that it's a great addition to what's there at the moment and really complements that precinct. And also just to add that I really like the gables, so they've done a good job with that, and happy to endorse it.
Thank you, Aman. Edward, you mentioned in your report that the original application was not as sympathetic as this. Can you just briefly, without going into too much detail, just explain what's happened from the start to now?
Yes, thank you, Mark. The original design was by a building designer, and that was, it really didn't take on any of the design cues required by being an extension of a local heritage place. It was a totally flat roof. It was very glassy in nature. On negotiation with the applicant, they did basically start again, and they look quite heavily at, I guess, the heritage requirements for the building, which they've done. The last change of a, I guess, momentous nature has been to carve away some more built form on the western side to gain more opening and space and light for the adjacent building to the west, 8 to 10 Molesworth Street, in an effort to basically not overly, I guess, create a sense of enclosure. It's in some of the plans there, you'll see a shaded hatched area where they've cut away, which I believe is, I think on drawing SK01 on page 419 of the attachments. So those are the changes made to, I think, address the heritage and address the amenity.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for keeping that brief. Congratulations to you for taking that line. It's obviously been a very worthwhile exercise, and also to the applicant for responding, and of course the architects that have come up with a good design. I think you've, all other members have said exactly what I'd want to say. But no, very worthwhile outcome, and I think it's. I can only just imagine what might have previously been submitted, but seeing the quality of what's now proposed, I think is very, very good. All right. So, any further comment or feedback? Otherwise, we'll get someone to move the recommendation, please?
I'm happy to move it.
Thank you, Aman. And I think Mark wants to second it.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Correct. Good.
There looks like there's a typo on page 408, which says drawings prepared by someone other than Flight Path.
Oh, I've stolen your credit.
Members there, that's to be just a cut and paste error on my behalf. Apologies for that.
The old cut and paste, but all those plans are correct.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Good. All right. That was a good spot. Any other issues?
No.
Okay, so we'll just note that that minor change. So, all right, so we've moved and seconded that. So we'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, just indicate with a raise of hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you, applicant, for your attendance. You'll receive notification shortly in writing from the council with that decision. Thank you for your contribution to our meeting tonight.
Thank you, panel members.
Members, there are no other items of business specifically. I have no other business to raise. Does any other member have an item of other business? No. Okay, good. So we'll just note that the next meeting is scheduled for, and I haven't got that on my piece of paper. What's the date, Judy? Oh, yes,
23rd of August.
23rd of August is the next meeting. Hopefully we'll be out of lockdown and be able to handle this in person. All right, so there being no other business, I'd like to close the meeting at 6:17, and thank you all for your attendance.
Thanks, Mark.
Good. All right, everybody.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Jenny. Thank you, Edward and Seb, for your help. And we'll see you all in a month's time.
Thanks for that.